Hi, this is Ali Arango of Game Visuals. Today I'm going to show you how to do isometric movement as well as isometric animation in Gdevelop. So let's get started. Okay, what you see in front of you is the website for Gdevelop. Gdevelop is an open source 2D game engine. It is also a game engine that allows you to make games using a minimum amount of code. To download Gdevelop, you would just go to the download link, download Gdevelop, and because Gdevelop is open source and free, you don't have to be concerned about there being any kind of limitations to this game engine as you use it, which is excellent. Okay, after you open up Gdevelop, you're going to see this screen right here. What you want to do is left click on create a new project. And then after you do that, you'll see these options open up here where you see platformer, space shooter, isometric game. These are basically templates that you can use to assist you as you work towards making a game. What we want to do is focus our attention on empty game. Before we click empty game, look at this right here. See where this says choose folder? What you want to do, if you want to make sure that your show folder, your game assets go to a place if you're choosing, you can left click on choose folder. For myself, I'm going to go to desktop, isometric tutorial, and then I made this folder here called tutorial files. So I'm going to left click, double click on that anyway to go here, and then I'm going to select folder. So now the work that we do here is now going to go to that folder. Okay, so now with that done, I'm going to left click on empty game. Okay, so after opening this up, now we see this panel right here. Typically when you come into Gdevelop, you want to focus your attention on scenes. Right underneath scenes, you're going to see this plus button to the right here. When we click this button, this will allow us to make a new scene, and our game is going to go into our first scene. And scenes are kind of like where your main game, is at. That would be a scene. If you pause the game or set the game up so you can pause it, that would be another scene. You're almost anytime the scene, I was about to say scene changes. Almost anytime the game changes and another screen pops up, that would be a scene. So you're going to click on this plus button here. So now you see new scene. So this basically gives us something to work in, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to left click on these three dots right here, and then this panel opens up. We're going to select rename, and I'm just going to backspace and rename this game 1, and then press enter. So I'm going to left click right here. Now when I left click right here next to this, what's now called game 1, we see this objects panel, these panels here. With this panel right here, this kind of covers up our work here. What we can do is click this X button, and then if we want that panel back, we can go to this button right here, which is our project manager button, left click this, and then the screen will come right back again. So for now, I'm going to click this X button to make that go away. What we want to do now is bring in a sprite to work with, and we're going to bring in, I should say, a sprite. We're also going to bring in sprites. Now what we're about to bring in is we're going to bring in mech sprites. I am a 3D designer and animator, so I made all of these. I made a mech, I animated and rigged the mech in Blender, then I made up sprites for it. I'll put a link in the description so you can get to the sprites so you can follow along with this tutorial. Okay, so what you want to do is look towards objects. You're going to click this plus button here, and then you'll see these different options pop up. You want to look towards this sprite option. You're going to left click here. Once you left click, you're going to see these different options you have: properties, behaviors, and then this object name. You're going to click next to this new object name. You're going to delete this, and we're going to name this player. Okay, so with that done, we're going to click this plus to the right here, and then now we're going to look to the left, this other plus button. We're going to left click there. Okay, now basically what's going on is we're going to bring in our first sprite. This sprite is going to be basically our idle pose. So I'm going to click for myself on desktop. I'm going to go to where I have this stored. And this right here is my idle pose. I'm going to left click and then click open. And now you can see here is this one sprite right here. So it's a sprite. I'm calling it an idle pose. Right here we see this option that says animation 0. I'm going to click here and type in idle, so we know that this is our idle pose. Okay, now that we have that set up, we can bring in the rest of our sprites. Okay, the purpose of this tutorial is for isometric movement as well as isometric animation. Now, isometric movement is going to have our player character move in 8 different directions or on 8 different angles. So we need 8 angles. So this is our idle. This is included in those 8 angles as well as 8 animations. So we're going to click this plus 8 times. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so the way things work as far as setting up this animation, Gdevelop knows which angle that each of these numbers of animation goes to. So 1 is going to be left, so we're going to name this left. 2 is going to be right. 3 is going to be up. 4 is going to be down. 5 is going to be left, up. 6 is going to be left, down. 7 is going to be right, up. 8 is going to be right, down. And I put those names in just so we know which animation sprite should go in. So we have animation 1 and we have left. So we need a sprite or sprites that show an animation of this mech walking to the left. So I already have that done. I'm a 3D animator. 3D modeler, rigger, animator. I made up this mech in Blender, animated, and I put out the sprites. I'll put a link into the description so you can get to these sprites so you can follow along with this tutorial. So we have animation 1 and left. So what we want to do is left click here and then go to where these sprites are at. So here are the folders that I have the sprites in. So I'm going to go to 1. I'm going to hold Control, press A, and then select Open. So now all of these sprites that are going left are now here for animation 1. So we're going to go to animation 2. This is number 2 and right. We're going to click here. Go to 2. Control A to select all the sprites and then click Open. So now we're going to go to 3, which is up. So 3, Control A, Open. So now there's our mech going up. We have number 4 down. So we're going to go to Control A, Open. So there's our mech going down. Now we have left down. So we're going to click, wait a second. We have number 5, which is left up, because we have first our animation, the number, and what's going on, and then underneath it, we need to click this, and then make sure we go to folder 5, and then left up. So we're going to click here. We're going to go to number 5, and we can see that our sprite's going left up. We're going to hold Control A, and then click Open, and now we have our sprites of our mech animating to the up and to the left. So now we have number 6, which is left down. So we're going to click here. And we're going to go to number 6. And left down is what we see here for our sprites. We're going to go press Control A, select Open. So now we have number 7, right up. So we're going to go to number 7. And then our mech sprites are going right up. So we're going to hold Control, press A. That's just a shortcut to select all of our sprites that are in this folder. We're going to click Open. And then now we see animation 8, which is right down. We're going to click here. Select number 8, and then we're going to hold Control, press A. You can see our mech is animating to the right down. Then we're going to click Open. And then because we have this work done, I'm going to click Apply just so that we can go to File and then Save so that we have this work at least done so far saved. Okay, so when we look here, you see just this idle sprite. This is the first sprite that we brought in. So now what we're going to do is we're going to left click and drag onto our work area right here. Now when I zoom this window back, I just rolled the mouse to zoom back. We can see that this is basically our window showing us how our work is going to, where our work is contained in. I'm going to left click here and we see these different squares in a circle. This circle allows us to rotate. This right here, this square in the corner allows us to shrink this and grow this. So I'm going to hold shift and then left click and I'm going to shrink this down some like that. I'm going to pull that down some. So we have our sprite here. Now we need to set up the code or programming, because one of the great things about Gdevelop is you really don't have to work with code too much. This is a great program for artists. And as Game Visuals is a place where we focus on game making from the artist perspective, we really like Gdevelop. So what we're going to do now is that since we have this work done, we have our we have our sprites and our animations in here. Now we need to set up this so that this actually animates. So we're going to left click on this Game 1 events. The way that things work in Gdevelop is Game 1, where you see this right here that isn't events. This is where we set up our art for the most part. And then Game Events is where we set up our programming as well as our logic to actually make things work in this game engine. Okay, in Gdevelop, the way things work basically are scenes, which you saw we added a scene, which is over here. And then it works by using events as well as actions to set up the logic and programming for your game. So right here we see the sign that says there are no events here. Events are composed of conditions and actions. Add your first event using the first buttons of the toolbar. So what we want to do is click this button right here. When we click that, now we have our condition as well as a way for us to set up an action. So with this setup, we are ready to begin working to set up to get our animation working. Okay, one of the very cool things in Gdevelop, I'm going to click back here to go back to our artwork here. As an artist, typically when I come into a game engine, I want to see my work move. I want to see my artwork move. And one of the things when I first tried Gdevelop that really made me like this was how easily you could set up movement. You can program movement yourself like you would in other game engines, but Gdevelop also has it set up where you can set up your movement, as far as your controls, almost immediately. So right now, if I go to my arrow keys, nothing, actually it does work a little, and that's just by pushing the arrow keys, you can make fine adjustments to your artwork. However, what we can do for movement for this is we can double click on our sprite. I named this idle. Actually, this player here, this animation 0 is supposed to be named idle. Okay, when you look to the top of here, you see where we see properties. You want to click on behaviors. Once you click on behaviors, you'll see this plus button to the right. When you click that plus button, you'll see all of these different behaviors. What you want to do is scroll down if you want. You could also see it without scrolling, but this top-down movement for 8 directions, you're going to left-click here. When you did that, you have these different options set up where you can adjust your top-down movement. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to take away this check mark next to Rotate Object, and then I'm going to click Apply. So just with that now, when I look up to these options up here, this right here is our preview button, and this lets us preview the scene. This also lets us play our game. So I'm going to click this now. And when I click this, we can see our sprite right here. Now when I use my arrow control keys, you can see that I have control over the sprite. So I just really like that, how easy and quick it is just to at least get your artwork moving. I said at the beginning of the tutorial, this tutorial is to help you set up isometric movement as well as isometric animation. Well, guess what? Your isometric movement is already set up just like that by using the behavior. Now what we need to do is set up our isometric animation. Okay, to set up our programming, we're going to click on Game 1 Events. And then here in this Game 1 Events, we see our add condition and our add action. The way you want to think of add condition is add condition tells Gdevelop when something happens, and then add action says when that something happens, this is what you want Gdevelop to do. So this is when, and then this is what, in a sense. So what we want to do is click on add condition. We're going to scroll down through all these options till we see top-down movement. We're going to left-click on top-down movement. We're going to look for is moving. So we're going to left-click there. Gdevelop wants us to know what it wants us to what we want it to focus its attention on. We're going to select player, and then with that done, I just left-click here to get that menu to go away. I'm going to left-click on OK. Okay, so our main thing is the player is we're saying, look, when the player is moving, we want something to happen. In Gdevelop, we have conditions and events. So this is an event, and then we add conditions to the event. We can also add sub-events to an event. So we want to add a sub-event to this. Now, it's important where you click in Gdevelop. So to get this sub, if I click on this gray panel here where it says player is moving, if I left-click here, if you look over here, see this button is actually our sub-event button. See how it's grayed out? It's grayed out, so Gdevelop is telling me that you can't select this right now. So what I need to do is actually move my mouse down some and then left-click underneath that gray bar, but still in this box that represents our condition. So now when I did that, now our sub-event is now selectable. So I'm going to left-click there to have our sub-event appear. So with this sub-events, this is actually we're going to set up our animation angles. So remember, we have 8 different angles. So we're going to need 8 different sub-events. So we have this first one here. So we need to click this button 7 more times. Now Gdevelop still remembers that I clicked right here. So it's basically I just clicked right here now. So I'm going to click this another 7 times. So this is going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so now that we have these different sub-events set up, we are ready to go through with our different angles. So remember, I told you this is when something happens, and this is what you want to happen. So for this add condition, we're going to left-click right on that add condition. And what we're going to do is scroll down till we see, past it, but there we go, keyboard. And then we want to go to key pressed. So this is our first animation, and this is going to be left. So I'm going to hold shift, and then I'm just typing in left. Now that there was a list that popped up, I could have scrolled through that list and I could have found the button and just selected left. Just telling you that so you know that you can do that. This is faster, so I just typed in left. So I'm going to click OK. So basically now you see this says left key is pressed. So this is the when left key is pressed. And now this is, okay, what do you want to happen? This is the add action. So I'm going to left click on add action. So what we want to happen is for the matching sprite that goes along with left key to be selected and play that animation. So I'm going to click sprite and then animations and images. And then I'm going to go to change the animation. And then Gdevelop wants to know what we wanted to focus on, which is our player. I'm going to left click here to get this menu to go away. I'm going to go to this modification sign, set this to equals set to, and the value needs to be 1. And this 1 matches up when we set up our sprites in, when we first set up our sprites, we went through 1 through 8, and I told you Gdevelop knew which animation number matched which direction. So this 1 matches up with left. So I'm going to click OK. So now that we have our when setup and our what, and even these basic conditions and this action, what we can do is we can copy and paste what we have done here just to make our work quicker. There's multiple ways you can do things in Gdevelop. I'm trying to show you a way to just get through this, hopefully in a fairly quick manner. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just copy and paste this left key is pressed to these other conditions, because we can easily change which key this is saying is being pressed. So I'm going to hover right here. I'm going to right click, select copy. And one thing that's important to note, see how there's these blue lines? Each of these blue lines lets us see which sub events we're on. See how we have this add condition right underneath this left key is pressed? It's important that you know where you're pressing. So if right now I want all separate sub events. So to do that, I'm going to be careful that I don't click on this add condition directly underneath this gray bar and directly to the side of this blue bar right here. I'm going to go to this next blue bar, and then I'm going to right click, paste. And I'm just going to do this for the rest of these sub events. So I'm just right clicking and pasting. And I did this because now we have this key set up to be pressed, and we can just easily change this to what we need it to be. Okay, and so just like we did for this side, we're going to do the same thing now for this side. So I'm going to right-click, select Copy, and then I'm just going to go to Action. I'm going to be careful that I don't select the action right underneath here, because that's not what I want to do, at least for right now. I'm going to go to this next action, which is to the right of this blue bar. This is a separate sub-event. So I'm just going to paste. Okay, and now this is also easy for us to set up and change. And again, there's multiple ways to do this. This is just my current way of doing this, hopefully just to have you be able to get your animation set up in a fairly short amount of time. Okay, so for these actions, we need to change this number here. So we know this is going through 1 through 8. So what we can do is I can go to Gdevelop and I can double click on this action, come into this action, and I can see here, the different things that I previously chose, and I can change this. I can also change the value here. I'm going to click cancel, and then what I'm going to do is, instead of that, I'm going to just click right on the number, and then this allows me to quickly just change this to 2, and then I can quickly go to the rest of these numbers and change them to what they need to be. So I'm just changing them. So we're going through our different angles. Whoops. Okay, so now just by doing that, we have our actions not all the way set up, but largely set up for what we need to be done as far as the actual programming to have our animation work. Okay, so for this first condition, we need to tell Gdevelop what we wanted to do when the left key is pressed. However, since we're working on isometric movement, we also need to tell Gdevelop to not do something when other buttons are pressed. So the way this is set up for left key, this first condition is fine. We need to set this up so that when we press up and down, nothing happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, copy. I'm going to add condition that is in the sub event. You can tell from this blue bar. So this time we want to be in our sub event. So I'm going to select paste, and then where we have this other add condition, I'm also going to select right click and then select paste. And the reason why I did that is I want to change this left to up. And then I want to change this left here. It's left because I just pasted that, copied and pasted. I want to change this to down. And now what I want to do is right now it's saying, okay, when left key is pressed, up, when up key is pressed, when down key is pressed. I want when left key is pressed, but I want this to be not when up key is pressed. I'm going to double click here and I'm just going to change this to invert condition. And you can see this little symbol pops up to let me know that that's invert condition. So now this is set up correctly. And this is set up to work right now. So we need to do this for the other 4 buttons. So I'm going to right click, select copy, and then I'm just pasting. So we have this invert already set up. Hopefully I'm not confusing you. And using copy and paste, we're able to, get that work going that quickly. Okay, so we have this left button is pressed. This second action, the one that matches up with number 2, because it's important that this matches up with our animations that we set up before. So this is going to be right. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to change this to right. And then for this, we have this up key is set up. That's good. Now for this right here, this second inverted action dealing with our right, our animation working with our right key, we're going to click here and we're going to change this to down. Okay, so now our left key and our right key are set up how they should be. So now what we need is we need our up and down key. So we're going to click here. We're going to name this up. And this is a capital U, by the way, I'm putting in. And then for this down, the same thing. This is going to be a capital D for down. And then where we have this, up, 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 basically saying what we need for these buttons to say for dealing with up and down is we need them to say left and right. So I'm going to click here. Change this to left. Change this to right. Same thing here. Change this to left. And then change this to right. Okay, so with what we have set up here, we actually have our animations almost set up for left, right, up, and down. What we want to do is go back to game 1. We want to double click on our player, and everything is set up for our animations as far as up, down, left, and right to work, with the exception of this right here. And what this is we need to actually set up how the time runs for our animation. So what we want to do is this clock symbol here, we want to click right on this 1. What we want to do is change this to 0.05 and then press enter. And then after we did that, what we can do is click on preview, and now we can see that we can see our mech walking here. However, what we want is we want this to loop. Currently it says don't loop, so we're just going to left click here for loop. And now when we go to preview, we can see our mech going through its walk animation. So pretty much what we need to do is to do this to the rest of our frames. So we're going to just scroll down, click on don't loop, click here, change this to 0.05, and we're just going to do this over and over again. Click on don't loop, 0.05. And when we click don't loop, we're clicking that because we're making this say loop 0.05. And this is just a speed that I think looks good. Don't loop 0.05. Don't loop 0.05. Now I'm saying don't loop, but I'm clicking on don't loop to make this loop 0.05. And when I click 0.05, this is making the animation faster. So if you go to play an animation, it doesn't work and everything looks like it's set up right, it might be that your timing for your animation isn't set up correctly. So with this set up, now we can left click on apply. Okay, now we can test out our animation. And one thing I want to say before we test this out, when we set up these conditions, we use the left key to copy from. So we still have this left key that, all of these copies right here. So the left key is not set up right because of these. So when we preview this game, everything should work as far as our right, our up, and our down key, but the left key is not going to work because we have some more work to do. So what we can do is click play to preview. And when we press up, we can see we're animating up, pressing to the right, we're animating to the right, pressing down, we're animating to the right. And when we press left, as we expected, we're not going to animate correctly. Now, when we stop animating, when we don't press, our mech should come to a stop. However, we haven't set that up yet, so everything is good for now. So what we want to do is when we press up, we can press up and to the right and see how we'll stay in the end. I'm pushing down just to bring this down. When I push up and to the right, the mech goes diagonal to the right, but it doesn't actually turn to the right. So we want to set that up now. Okay, so with these keys right here, what we want to do is where we have left key and left key, this is fine. We're going to copy this and we're going to paste here this other left. And the reason why we're doing that is because we want this to be left key is pressed and then up key is pressed. We're going to click here. We're going to make this a capital U, but change this to up. And then right here, we're going to click here. We're going to change this to a capital D and then down. And then for this right here, these last two keys, we want to click here, change this to a capital R for right. And change this to a capital R for right. Now we're going to copy this and then paste this. And now, let's roll my mouse to try to scroll down. So this needs to say up now. So we're going to click here, change this to capital P and then up. Capital D and then down. You might say, why is he pressing up and down and all that, copy and pasting? Copy and pasting is just to try to make this quicker. You don't have to do that. You don't have to set things up. Your code needs to be set up like this. I mean, you still have more to do, but it needs to look like this. How you get to this, you can get to this multiple ways. I copied and pasted just for the sake of speed. Okay, we're almost done with our work. We need to add some more code to 5, 6, 7, and 8. So we're going to go to Add Action. We're going to go to Common Action for all objects. We're going to come down to Movement, and we're going to look through our options, and we're going to go and select Add a Force. We're going to select Player for Gdevelop to focus on. And then the speed axis and this Y axis, this helps our player to move diagonal. So for the x-axis, we need to enter 20. For the y-axis, we need to enter 45. Then we can click OK. And so now, since we have this line set up, now what we can do is we can just right-click, select Copy, Paste, and we can just paste and then paste. And the reason why I'm copying and pasting again is for the sake of speed. So now we have this set up, and it's not a lot faster, but now we can just come and change these numbers. So for this number here, we need this to be negative 45. Whoops. Okay, there we go. Negative 45. Same thing here. Negative 45. For this here, we need this to be 45. So we have 45 and 45 is correct. And then here we need this to be 20 and 45 for our 8 animation angle. Okay, now with all that set up, let's click our preview button. And now when we press our left, our right, that works. Our down works, our up works. When we push up and left, that works. I'm coming down, I'm going to push up into the right, that works. I'm going to push down into the right, that works. So everything is working. There's one thing we have to do, and that's when we don't press our press and hold a key, our mech is still walking. So let's set that up now. Okay, when you look at all of these conditions here, these are sub-events here. This is an event. You can tell this is an event because it isn't indented. These are sub-events. What we want to do is make another actual event. So something that's not a sub-event. So to do that, we're going to left-click here. Now, again, I'm saying again because we did this before, where it says player is moving. We don't want to click there. We want to click right beneath there. And you can see like this blue line is right here. So with that done, we want to go to this button right here, which says add a new empty event. We're going to click that. And then after clicking that, all the way near the bottom, you can see we have this event, not a sub-event. So we're going to left click on that. We're going to scroll down to where we get to top-down movement. And then we're going to select is moving. And then we're going to select the player. And what we're going to do this time, because we did this for our first event, is we're going to click Invert Condition. So this is basically setting this condition to say when our object is not moving. And what we're going to do is we're just going to look to this action right here. We're going to right click, select copy, and then paste that here. And that just saved us the work of going through and finding this. And then when this says do equals 8, we're going to change this by clicking on the number. We're going to just change this to 0, press enter. Don't have to press enter. You just click off of it. And what this should do is say, basically what's going on is this is saying when the player is moving, when you press these keys, make these animations show. And then what this is saying is when the player is not moving, that's why that invert symbol's there, make this animation show, and that animation is actually our idle animation. So now when I click the preview button, you can see our mech is just sitting there. So when I push up, I let go, our mech will come back to that idle pose. So now we don't have things where our mech, when we let go of our key, any of our movement keys is just keeps moving. So now our mech actually stops. Okay guys, that's it for the tutorial. So that is how you set up for isometric movement as well as animation here in Gdevelop. If you like how I taught this video, please let me know. If you have suggestions for things you would like to see on this channel, or how you think I should do things on this channel, please let me know. Be aware that I am a 3D artist. I spend most of my time modeling, animating, texturing, and rigging. If you like this video and you would like to see more, please subscribe, and thank you for viewing this video.